slide, please. So just a reminder for folks, please mute your meeting rooms to reduce noise. Working group members should raise their hands if they want to speak or unmute themselves. For transcript purposes, please say your name before you begin speaking. And as always, this meeting will be recorded. Next slide, please. And we will, just to get started, we'll do a roll call. In Albany, we have Alana Cadell-Tuckey.
Hi, Joe McNerney, New York State Department of Labor.
Neil Muscatello, Department of Health.
And in New York City,
Chris Cole from NYSERDA. Good afternoon.
I see Jill in Raybrook.
Hello.
I don't see anyone else in Region 9. Is there anyone in Region 9? Rawa, are you here?
Hi, we're still waiting for Rawa to arrive. We expect her here, I think, any minute.
Okay, we'll come back. We'll go through other names if anybody else. Those were the rooms we had reserved, right? Oh, no, we had Raybrook and Buffalo. Yep. So we'll wait another couple of minutes for folks to arrive because we don't currently have a quorum. If a quorum is not established, then this officially is not a meeting under open meetings law. We can still discuss the criteria and we can still have a conversation on the methodology. We just are not permitted to deliberate or vote on the minutes or anything else. So we'll just give it another couple of minutes, and if not, we'll just carry on and continue.
Are we on mute?
Okay, the time is 3:09. We do not have a quorum under open meetings law. So this will not be, as I said before, this will not be an official meeting of the Climate Justice Working Group. We'll still be able to discuss the comments and the criteria, but we will not be permitted to deliberate or vote on the issues. We'll still be taking notes and minutes, and the meeting will still be recorded since it's an informational session and a discussion, but because it doesn't qualify Climate Justice Working Group members who are attending via video conference to participate in the discussion. So any Climate Justice Working Group members who are as listed in the attendees section can be elevated to panelists and we can begin our discussion.
If someone shows up, and we achieve a quorum, is that possible?
It is possible.
Yeah,
Oh,
there
good.
are
Okay.
people waiting. I think there's some problems. So before you determine we don't have quorum, can you give it a minute? Because there's a problem, there's a technical problem.
Is there a technical problem in one of the rooms, or are they having trouble getting on virtually? Because if it's a problem getting on virtually, they can give me a call here and I can try to walk them through it.
No, people are getting on now, but for a while there, you couldn't see us, you couldn't hear us, we're muted. And so I think that it's starting to happen now.
Okay, got it.
Thank you.
Yep, in order to have a quorum, it actually has to be a physical quorum, so there need to be at least 7 climate justice working group members that are in physical locations in order to meet that, but as I said, we can still have our conversation.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by physical
physical
locations?
So under open meetings law, we have to be in a physical location that's accessible by the public. So the New York City office, the Albany office, other areas that the public can also access.
So I have a disability, my mobility is limited, so my being here in my office doesn't count? You can't make a special accommodation?
Well, so what we could do for that is if we don't have if there's a physical quorum, then folks who are communicating during video conference can still participate without having to have that area open to the public. So open meeting law basically says if we are meeting, the areas need to be available to the public. If we're having an official meeting and we're meeting a quorum. Based on the resolution that we passed, working group members that, are not able to make it to physical locations can still participate if we have a physical quorum, and they then do not have to meet that. They don't have to be in an area that the public can access. Unfortunately, since we don't have a physical quorum, that just means we can't vote on anything, but we can still have our conversation and we can still discuss the criteria.
As a non-lawyer, I just want to make sure I'm understanding all this. You're saying that the quorum is determined by people physically appearing. That's what in other words, a climate justice working group member off-site, that doesn't count towards the legal definition of quorum. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, being in a room, for example, we're in a conference room that the public can technically access. That counts as being in a physical location.
Gotcha. To Elizabeth's point, I don't know whether or not, maybe for future meetings, but it might be worthwhile to ask whether what the open meetings law says when there is a person with a disability. It feels like people with disabilities who can't make it to a physical location, that their presence doesn't count towards quorum, doesn't feel ADA compliant to me. So
it violates the ADA.
Yes, I'm just saying that.
Violates the ADA.
Right. So I'm just saying that maybe not now, but maybe DEC's lawyers or whoever the legal folks is that looks into open meetings law, it check for ADA compliance, because it feels like this physical demand for physical expression of whatever, of being there, counting towards quorum seems to not be ADA compliant. But anyway, if you guys could just run it back with the lawyers, we'd appreciate it.
No, absolutely. We can definitely have our counsel look at that. And we'll be able to respond. We'll send out, we're gonna have counsel look at that. And then once we have something official, we can send it around to the working group. Okay, so apologies for the technical issues. We can still get started. Next slide, please. Like I said, we can still, we'll still be taking notes on this. It's still being recorded, and this recording will still be posted. So we'll still stick to all the other standards. We just won't be voting on anything. So this is just a quick agenda. I did take the voting off of the agenda. So we're going to do a quick review of any outstanding points for the previous meeting. We'll just dive right into an open discussion on comments, discuss any issues, go through the timeline issues, and then we can have like a quick little talk about the upcoming benefits and investments meeting. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about the agenda? Okay, next slide, please. So we're just going to review a little bit from last meeting. Next slide. So in the last meeting, we did discuss that ACLIMA is looking to set up meetings to discuss an ACLIMA Pro with climate justice working group members. So a poll was sent out. If you didn't receive it, or if you haven't had an opportunity to speak to our employees in AR Resources, we can definitely put you in touch with folks. I will be sending out a survey regarding our meetings in 2023 next year on Friday, not next year, sorry. I'll be sending that out on Friday. So we can, folks can start just sort of, thinking about what dates they're not available, what times are best, if this time continues, if we're willing to, based on the amount of work we're doing, if we want to push these meetings to 2 hours, just something to think about. So I'll be sending out sort of a variety of options for us to consider. Additionally, so we had an additional meeting to continue the discussion of the clean transportation standards. That was on Thursday, November 17th. Those comments were discussed at the November 21st Climate Action Council meeting. The next meeting of the Climate Action Council is going to be on December 19th. If folks are still interested in talking about items or have issues or concerns, please feel free to reach out to me and we can set up meetings with staff to go over those. Does anybody have any questions, concerns, or anything to add? Yes, Eddie?
Yeah, I was wondering, for some of these upcoming briefings, whether it's ACLIMA or the Clean Transportation Standards, some of us have staff that this is what they do for us. Would it be possible to have either proxies for climate justice working group members to sit in on these, or can we add staff that would be I think really useful for all of us, if some of those people in our organizations are at least listening in, but I'm not sure what the protocol is, so I was just wondering.
Oh, yep, it should be fine to have somebody come to a meeting on your behalf. Just let me know ahead of time so we can make sure that they are entered into the systems if they're going to be public, or so that I recognize their name. But other than that, that should be fine. I believe that for voting purposes, it would still need to be the Climate Justice Working Group member, but for meetings, you are permitted to have a proxy.
Great, thank you.
But I will double check with the council and make sure, in addition to the open meetings law, I will make sure that that is clarified as well.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely. All right, anything else before we move on? Okay, next slide. All right, so we are just going to dive right into our conversation on disadvantaged communities comments, and I am going to throw the presentation over to Alex.
Okay, thank you. So there are a couple quick review items I wanted to just refresh our memories on things, and also I'll need to share my screen in a minute too, so if I can get the ball, that would be great. In the meantime, we can go to the next slide. That works too. I can share. Okay. So I'm just gonna come down here, and I wanted to present a little bit of the prior work that we had done, just to kind of contextualize some of the areas that we're going to talk about from the comments as well. So in the last 2 years to develop the draft criteria, we took input from you and the literature and scientists and came up with more than 170 indicators that we considered for inclusion. We went and put those through a rubric, downloaded some data, did a lot of statistics to try to see which ones would be the best, and ended up going with 45 of the strongest indicators. And these were the ones that had sufficient high quality data, but they were also supported by, kind of prior research, etc. And they were also, and this is I think also very important, applicable to the goals and applications of the disadvantaged communities under the Climate Act. So as a refresher, we bucketed these different 45 indicators into 7 different, buckets down here. And I'm going to go through each one of those because I think it's helpful for us to remember what we have before we go through the comment recommendations on indicators. By the way, please speak up if you have any questions. I can't see the chat or anything right now. So I'm just going to run these down so they're top of mind. We've got under potential pollution exposures, vehicle traffic density, diesel truck and bus traffic, PM 2.5, benzene concentration, wastewater discharge. Under land use and facilities associated with historical discrimination and disinvestment, we've got remediation sites, regulated management plan for chemical sites, major oil storage facilities, power generation facilities, active landfills, municipal waste combustors, scrap metal processors, industrial manufacturing, mining, land use, zoning data, and housing vacancy rate. Under potential climate change risks, we've got extreme heat projections. We've got flooding in coastal and tidally influenced areas. We've got flooding in inland areas, low vegetative cover, agricultural land use, and driving time in hospitals. Coming down then to the characteristics for population characteristics and health vulnerabilities, we've got 4 different groupings here. Income, education, and employment, the percent less than 80% area median income. We also have percent less than 100% federal poverty line, percent without bachelor's degree, unemployment rate, and percent single family, single parent households. We also have race, ethnicity, and language indicators, so percent Latino or Latina or Hispanic, percent Black or African American, percent Asian, percent Native American or Indigenous, limited English proficiency, and historical redlining. We then have for health impacts, asthma ED visits, COPD ED visits, heart attack hospitalizations, premature death, low birth weight, percent without health insurance, percent with disabilities, percent of adults age 65 and older. For housing, energy, and communications, we've got percent renter owner, renter occupied homes, housing cost burden, that's a cost for rental costs, energy poverty and cost burden, manufactured homes, homes built before 1960, and percent without the internet. So all of that is to show really and contextualize what the rest are. And I'm going to now stop sharing and then jump to an Excel file that has all of the commented indicators that we got information on. And for some reason, it's not wanting to show. Okay, here we go. And we provided this last week for the Climate Justice Working Group members to review, and I'd love to go through these, discuss them. What we ended up doing was taking, I think these are about 66 different indicators that were recommended from the comments. And then we took about 45 of those that weren't duplicative to what we already have and put them through the rubric. So I want to go through that. But before I jump in, have you all had a chance to review this list that we sent you, and were there any indicators that you thought was really important? Elizabeth, I saw something pop up, but I couldn't see what it was.
I'm just asking if you can make it a little bigger, make it more readable.
Totally.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Hopefully that works. Let me know.
That's
Yeah,
great,
so
thank you.
I didn't get a chance to look at this. Apologies. I think I have a spam on my laptop for Climate Justice Working Group emails right before Thanksgiving. Yeah, no, I didn't look at it. Sorry.
That's totally okay, and I get it. So that's why I set it up so that we could go through it together and let's just chat about them. I do want to show you these. These are all of them. And then I want to show you the ones that we put through the rubric so that you can see kind of how they scored. And I'll remind you all what the rubric is and what we did for that. But I wanted to show you the larger one because, you know, you may have different ideas of what you think we should have put in there or not. So going to go through these and let me know what you think. So we've got PEJA recommendation, noise pollution, pesticide use, polluted waterways, proximity to airports, proximity to waste transfer stations, proximity to water pollution, rail tracks and yards, vehicles mild traveled, zoning practices, asthma, electromagnetic fields, heat-related illnesses, landfills, potential pollution exposure, water and air quality monitoring, access to potable water, siting of industry, competitive power ventures like fracking, illegal dumping, lead water in schools, lead water in service lines, PFAs, poor drinking water, prevalence of illegal dumping and insufficient sanitation, prevalence of illegal truck parking, prevalence of structural fires. For these that you all can see now, is there any comment or thought?
Alex, I think we talked about this last time. Some of these, I just want to make sure I'm understanding. Like these are recommendations to add as indicators, and I thought we talked last time that some of these are already in there. There's no way transfer stations are not in here. I cut my teeth on transfer stations 30 years ago. Like, trust me, there's no way this is not going to have that. Why is that? I'm just curious. Why is that appearing to folks as if it's not an included indicator when I thought we captured it?
Yeah, well, I think that, I mean, there's a lot of ones that in here that are duplicative, but I'm just kind of showing you all of them right now that we could pull out as individual ones to like give just full transparency of it. But I can actually just screen out the ones that are duplicative, and then that will give us the ones that are not, if that works for you.
But I guess the question is, if people are saying it, they're not, well, maybe I'm giving too much credit, but is it that people are just not seeing it or not reading it carefully and that's why they're suggesting it? Or is there this level of vagueness that people like, it's not in there added? Like, I'm just wondering what's like landfills. How are landfills not in here? But are people missing it? Or, okay. So folks are just not reading carefully? Is that what's going on?
Well, I mean, I don't know exactly, but I would say just to give them some empathy, it's a lot of data and a lot of nuance as to what we considered and why, and that was all in the treasure trove of documentation that we provided. But that's asking, I think, a lot of the general public to have that, you know, and then provide comments. And so if sometimes it's useful to know that, oh, other people really thought the same things as we did, and they may have missed that it was in there before.
So is it possible to go over the things that are not included?
Yes.
Can we focus on that?
Yeah,
because a lot of this, as Eddie said, is already in there. So maybe we can just have a smaller list that's been filtered through the things that we've already decided were priorities for disadvantaged communities.
Yeah, let me take you through this then, because I think it's going to be worthwhile to give you this perspective. So we took these through the rubric, that fun part here. And what I wanted to show you with the rubric, these are the ones that, at least on some level, we don't have exactly as they had commented on. But one thing I will note is that almost every single comment I have put in here after we've gone through, our whole team went through the rubric, is that almost everything, with exception to a few, really overlaps very strongly with something we already have. So here is the shorter list. And I want to give a refresher of the rubric here. So we had our team go and take down all of the information we could on these different indicators that were proposed from the comments. And then in the rubric, if everyone remembers, you know, from like a year and a half ago, we had these different questions of, does this represent for these different pillars? And do we have good enough data for them? And then we rated them according to that. I'm not going to go through the individual ratings here, but I will go through, you know, we have these sub-scores and then we have the overall score here. And then we ordered them according to how they scored based on what they are. So I've ordered these to be those that have scores as high to as low as possible. And some of these are just really low and not feasible. So I'm going to go through these, and I will say this, that almost every single one has some overlap in here. So let me tie these two together so you can see what they are. I'm also going to make this much less. There we go. Okay. Is this big enough? Does this work for everyone?
Can you make it a little bigger?
please?
Yeah. How's that?
Folks, there's a little button right above the list where you can make it bigger yourselves. Like there's a plus and minus percentage number. Do you guys see it above the table? Don't tell me like
Show
I'm a WebEx.
I just saw it. Yeah, it works.
Y'all, I've been doing this WebEx stuff with y'all so
Show
long
off.
that I'm available for trainings and sorry.
I love, Eddie, that you're the technological support here on this. That's awesome. Okay, so I want to go through these. These are the ones from highest to lowest that scored kind of the best. And last time, so we're going to go to largest to smallest again. Last time, the average was like 20 that all the indicators, all 170 that we went and put through. 20 was the kind of average score. So anything above that is scoring above average on our rubric. And then we've got these different ones. So EN zone, it overlaps with income. And when I say overlaps, for the most part, I don't think my recommendation to the working group is it's not worth us going and downloading the data, running the correlations to see whether it's better or not. I feel like we've done a lot of homework and work on trying to get some of these in here. But again, I want to show them all to you so that you can have the final say on this. Alana, do we have a quorum now with Rawa here? Welcome, Rawa.
No, unfortunately, we don't have a physical quorum, but we can still continue discussions. We just are not allowed to vote.
Okay. Bummer.
Quick question, what is EN zone?
EN zone, where is it? Shannon, help me. It's an income metric.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Emily, are you? Let's
I know. See, this is why we got to write notes to each other.
going blank.
Because we had this like whole discussion about what EN zone was, but it is an income metric, and I think it is tied geographically, I think, to the end zone. Yes.
Yeah. It
but
has a lot to do with the unemployment rates and poverty. Yeah.
It is more modeled, however.
Yeah.
So it's a metric that is directly tied to disadvantaged communities, as we know, because income is and other things. But my preference is always to go away from any modeled type of data source and use the raw data itself. But we'll get you the exact definition because clearly I'm not the one that went and put these things through the rubric. The other ones, though, are a little more clear. Housing structures with 10 or more units. We have housing density and home ownership in here. And so one of the things that I'm not sure of is to see whether this is actually going to help us or not. So this is kind of a flag for discussion from you guys. One. We've got population in poverty and disabled. the comment was unclear as to whether they wanted the intersection of those in poverty and disabled or whether it was two separate ones. So we went, and because we have income and disability in there, we feel like this is covered as much as it can. Oh, look at that. Shannon, you want to say it?
Yeah, so I don't think I could put this in the chat to everyone for some reason, but to be designated as an EN zone, a census tract needs to have a poverty rate of 20% and an unemployment rate at least 1.25 times the statewide unemployment rate. And then it can also qualify if it has a poverty rate at least double the rate of the county in which the tract is located.
So one of the reasons why I would recommend not having that in there is because it, while I think it's probably a very good metric, we already have all of the determinants in there. And we then would have, if we used income and we used poverty, you know, we have various income rates, and we can then set those parameters to match what we want to do, which is gives us a little more control. I'm going to flag this one as a good flag for kind of ground truthing. If I can type. Okay. Please speak up as I go through. Houseless, unsheltered. This one I think is actually really important, but we don't have any good data to get to it. And so this is one of those that I'd like to flag for long-term monitoring, in the sense of a metric that should be considered in the future as we try to identify the data sources we can use. The reason I say that is because across the state, New York State, we don't have good data for this, even if we might have localized data that is helpful. Polluted waterways, we actually have some indicators that are already like this, and we reviewed others. We have data for water quality, so I would recommend not going for this one. SNAP and food stamp recipients, we actually have this overlapping with our two income indicators. Landfills, we have industrial land use and also landfill data. Potential pollution exposure, this one is an interesting one for us. We thought potential pollution exposure as in a forward-looking, think about the future, kind of like what we do for the heat wave type data that we have. This could be something to look into, but we're not sure.
Can we go back for a second?
Yep.
Landfills, just for clarification, the industrial land indicator is based on zoning, correct?
Yes.
Is there any concern that there may be landfills in areas where there is not zoning?
Well, we have active landfills separately in the data, kind of in the criteria. So I think
overlaps with a couple. Okay.
Yeah. So it's that plus like active landfills.
Okay, thank you.
But it's a good question. Also, some of these I will give full transparency to saying as we extract these, but going back even to the original comments, we can't always know exactly what the commenter intended by them. So we're taking some interpretive license, and sometimes we've debated that internally as to what this might mean or not. And so if you have a different interpretation of it, please let us know. Okay, high tax aid overlaps with income. Rail tracks and yards overlaps with industrial land. Affordable housing. We have home ownership, housing density, and income. So I think this is probably one that overlaps quite strongly, but we can look at it if you think it's worthwhile. Concentration of heat vulnerable jobs. This one was something that we thought was very interesting. Again, it's like an intersection of several things, and we have some of those underlying areas. So we have agricultural and land use as one data point. We have the tree canopy, which I will say is low vegetative cover that we're using, and we have heat-related illnesses that we're tracking as well. So in those three, we probably already have an overlap of the concentration of heat vulnerable jobs. Not all of them, but some of them.
What constitutes a heat vulnerable job?
This was again our interpretation of someone who's outside and exposed to areas where they don't have cooling during hot times, hot heat waves. But it could be also industrial kind of sweatshops and areas too.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, because it can also mean city workers that are working on building out green infrastructure, right? Like the irony is, in communities where we're going to try to build out green infrastructure, particularly disadvantaged communities, those workers by definition are going to be working in places where there's an increased urban heat island effect. So I don't know how to capture this or how prevalent it is, but it is a different area of or bucket of vulnerability than like the commonly understood version, which are agricultural workers. So yeah.
Yeah. And to that end, where it doesn't overlap with agricultural workers, I think it's going to be really hard to kind of operationalize this as an indicator, because we don't have geospatially kind of derived data on where people are working outside, or even in sweatshops. Like those data just don't exist on any kind of level. So this one is one that I think we need to try to think outside the box and think about the underpinnings of it and see what we can do. We have these three areas, but it's something we can keep a look at, because there's definitely something there.
Dr. Dunn, I kind of want to go back to affordable housing.
Yep.
So, someone who lives in a high rental community, do we have anything in our current matrix that addresses rental?
We do. We have homeownership or percent renter occupied. So when I'm looking this way, I'm looking at my other screen. So we've got percent renter occupied. We've got housing cost burden. Those are rental costs. And we also have energy poverty and cost burden from those.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that. And then on the current one of the heat vulnerable jobs, I'm wondering if this person's also just trying to get to the amount of like dangerous jobs of doing, storm, like some kind of like climate weather event cleanup.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we have anything like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, so I'm writing that down because I want to kind of capture your thoughts there. But I think one of the things we do have is in the projections, again, different, right? So thinking kind of outside the box here, we've got extreme heat projections, and we've got then the flooding inland and coastal. And then we've got low vegetative cover. Those all, I think, are ones that kind of capture some of that, but not all of it, going to that climate event thing, because we don't have anything about specifically response to climate events. But what we're trying to
and remediation, I would add, is a lot of those, again, without the proper training and what have you, and they tend to be entry-level jobs that disproportionately then harm working class and BIPOC folks.
We do have remediation sites in the the criteria right now. So in some ways we are covering that, but what we're not covering is the people focused part. We're just covering the geography, which is kind of what we have to do if we're going to put it in a geographic criteria.
Yeah, I would like to think that the underpinning of this question is really related to people.
Mm-hmm. Which then goes into how do we operationalize that in a way that we can like pin down to a geography.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna.
Alex Sonal had her hand up, and then Joe.
Okay, Sonal.
Oh, I think that was from the heat vulnerability piece, and I think we kind of covered it, but I was just gonna say I think it's a difficult one to have of the heat vulnerable workers piece. So I think, and that was just because like movers, for example, in New York City are all over New York City, and so then all of New York City I think would be categorized in this. Is just an example. So
yeah. I think I'm going to flag for kind of long-term kind of consideration in the sense of there's some areas here, there's something about that we're trying to get at, right? Which is like the people in places that are most exposed, the people who are doing the jobs that are the hardest are put most at risk. And we're not quite sure whether we're capturing that or not. And so it's more of like we need to be starting to think about how to measure some of that.
I agree with Sonal. I think it's difficult to capture, and also it's not necessarily people who work outside. What about people who work inside and have an old HVAC system and don't have any air conditioning in the summertime? Like I'm not sure how we would capture that information.
Yeah, I keep thinking about all the sweatshops in certain neighborhoods and how hard it is to actually capture that with any kind of statewide data and what we could do to try to do that. But again, even if it's a hard nut to crack, it's something that we should start thinking about as far as the outcomes of what we're hoping to do with this, right? With this definition is not just to define it, but also improve the situation on the ground. So it's something we can look into. Joe, I believe you had a question?
Dr. Dunn, just a very quick question to kind of narrow in on this discussion point on heat vulnerable jobs. So this exercise remind me, or correct me if I'm wrong, but we're looking at the comments and considering the comments given by the public to what we've had out there, right? So in other words, this specific issue of concentration of heat vulnerable jobs refers to maybe a paragraph or a letter or something that somebody proactively sent. Is that right?
Yeah.
So then in terms of, and I'm not trying to be exclusionary, I guess you'd say, of all of these great ideas on what this might mean, but we can in fact drill down, right, and look at the source document to determine what exactly the writer, the commenter intended, right?
Yeah, except for there's not a lot of information on these. So we can look into it again, but I believe it was like, here are some things you should consider, one of which is concentration of heat vulnerable jobs.
Okay, because I hate to sound too like square, but I really get a little nervous when we speculate as to what a commenter meant. And
yeah,
I certainly would leave it to the working group members, not me, but as a working group member from an agency, I would feel a little uncomfortable speculating as to what a commenter meant unless they were a little more specific, respectfully.
Oh, I totally am there with you. A lot of these we've had to take some liberties or be open about the fact that we have to interpret them because we don't have a lot of background or data other than what they provided with it, which was often just a list of things to consider. Very few comments gave a lot of background or recommendations of why. There were some, but not all. Makes our job even more interesting. It's a good flag, though, I think, to not go too far afield. So I'll try to hold to that. Okay, I'm going to come back to this. Porous ground surfaces. This overlaps with the land cover that we've got. It's something that we can look into, though. Wanted to talk to you about it. We also, I would say that this it's getting at flooding and flooding risks, and we already have those two different, elements in riverine and coastal flooding. Pesticide use, we operationalized that and discussed that last time. It overlaps with agricultural land use. Proximity to airports. This one was something we actually discussed last year and a half, about using proximity to airports as an indicator. We ended up going with industrial land use because we discussed the fact that sometimes proximity to airports is a useful thing. It's a positive and a negative. So we went with exposure to certain bad chemicals, PM 2.5, benzene, wastewater discharge, diesel truck and bus traffic, and vehicle density, in addition to industrial land use, as a way to try to get at the negatives of being close to an airport. Nevertheless, this is one that I wanted to see what you guys thought. Okay. Prevalence of structural fires. We thought this one was interesting. It scored relatively. Oh,
Alex, can I weigh in, please?
yes, please.
Hey, everyone. Adriana Espinosa here. I wanted to comment on the porous ground surfaces, just to add a little color to those few words there. So this came up, I recall, from one of our public hearings, specifically the one that we had in New York City. And I also think I recall seeing even like some follow-up news coverage on this topic about concerns about sunny day flooding or sort of inland flooding, and particularly talked about, how maybe the indicators that we did have doesn't quite capture the risk in a rapidly changing climate from heavily pavemented neighborhoods where the rainwater has nowhere to escape, and sort of a new type of flooding, maybe that's not currently captured in the data. And so not making a recommendation here, but I did want to add that background of like the specific things that I heard about concerns of what happened after Ida in New York City in particular back in 2021. So just wanted to add that background.
Can I ask a question, Adriana?
Sure.
Is this more likely to happen in disadvantaged communities? Is that why it's being recommended?
I don't know about geographically speaking, if this is more likely to happen in disadvantaged communities, but what I think was on full display, at least for the example I brought up in Hurricane Ida, right, is that the people who tragically lost their lives tended to be lower income, immigrant population, basement apartment dwellers, and therefore they were more vulnerable. I can't speak on whether or not they also were in a disadvantaged community geographically.
Okay. No, that's good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It's Jill. Can I ask a clarification question? So what Adriana was just talking about is impervious surfaces, but what's listed here is porous ground surfaces. So is this supposed to be impervious, or is it supposed to be porous?
I think you can operationalize it either way, right? I think what they're getting at is the idea that flooding can happen in places where there are non-porous ground surfaces.
Okay, thank you.
To that end, also, Adriana, I added in the low vegetative cover as kind of something that overlaps with, because that would be a high corollary with non-porous ground surfaces.
Absolutely. Thanks, Alex.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we're going to continue going. But I can flag that one for us to download and try to work with if you all think. I am worried that with the indicators we have and what we could do, that there's not much that we're going to gain as far as a separate indicator. But again, this is why I want to talk to you all and get your thoughts. Okay, I'm going to move on. I want to talk about prevalence of structural fires. This one was interesting. And we have very little idea how we can operationalize the actual data to get to this, but one of the reasons why we thought this was interesting, at least where I live in Portland, Oregon, structural fires are increasing because of the large houseless population in Portland. And so this might actually get at some of the houseless in kind of a way that might give us a little bit more information here. So I wanted to talk to you all about it, see what you thought. I want us to try to figure out whether there's even any data for it or not. Okay, we're going to look into it.
Quick question. Which one are we doing? The pesticide one?
No, the prevalence of structural fires.
Okay, never mind.
Okay, I'm going to move down to cost of living. This one really overlaps with some of the items that we have, but it's a little bit different. We have housing cost burden and energy poverty and cost burden, but what we don't have is cost of living. And we thought that there could be something interesting happening here. Now it also overlaps with income because we use area median income and the federal poverty line. So I wanted to get your thoughts. Should we look into cost of living as a separate indicator?
I'm not asking for us to do mind reading, obviously, but can we get a little clearer sense of what is meant by cost of living? Yeah, I'm just wondering if we've got any kind of more precise context here.
Yeah, my sense is this comment I think came out of someone from Long Island who felt that using certain metrics didn't really work, like income metrics wouldn't really work in Long Island because of the high cost of living in the area. And so they wanted us to look into a way to think through whether, you know, an indicator for cost of living as opposed to just area median income and energy burden and cost burden.
I would be curious, it's Jill, I would be curious what went into that before I have a meaningful opinion about it.
Well, and that's kind of like why we have it flagged for further reviews to like try to figure out what we could put into that and how we could operationalize that. You know, anything that has the overlaps one, we're not going to go and try to operationalize or do in our view. But the flag for further review, these are the ones where we want to look into it and see whether there's something there. This one I see as a 50-50 type of idea. There's validness to this now, particularly as inflation comes up. It is affecting poor people, vulnerable people at a much higher rate, and cost of living is increasing because of that. And so I didn't want to ignore this just because we have income indicators and we have all these other things, because right now people are really hurting. Maybe this is something to look into. But at the same time, we have a lot of indicators that speak to costs of living in a, you know, more foundational way, rather than trying to operationalize cost of living for census tract by census tract.
I would be interested in seeing some modeling on cost of living. I don't know if it's important now, but I can see over time it being more important, especially as we think about climate migration and moves into the city that could both cause, you know, displacement of folks that are currently living in cities. But if we're going to also have, you know, as we think about the climate crisis and this serious move to cities, but also as we think about climate migration in Rust Belt cities, it could be a big factor. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I think so.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think if there's something in there. So we'll flag it. We'll see what we can do. I don't make any promises on that one. I think it's going to be really hard to operationalize, but it's something that's worth looking into.
Maybe when
Okay.
we talk about it again, sorry, it's Jill again.
No, you're good.
Maybe when we talk about it again, I'm kind of hung up on the energy burden and the fact that we don't have great data for that. And I'm sure that part of that will contribute to whatever the cost of living criteria is. So maybe when we do talk about it, we could talk about those things together.
Yeah, and I can give you more details on what we do have in the criteria as far as energy poverty and cost burden, because that is in there. And it's okay. Excuse me. It's okay data, but it's not great. But we do have it because we thought it was pretty darn important to capture. So yes, let me make note of that too. Also look into energy burden and interplay between cost of living and energy burden. Okay. So we'll take a look at that one. I'm also going to say that we're going to take a look at structural fires. Maybe that's just a me thing. To me, it sounded like a really interesting way of trying to get at something that we couldn't capture in a different way, or a more direct way. This one also something we wanted to flag. We have no idea how to do this, and we got no information further than this sentence. Infrastructure that serves multiple communities. That I thought was an interesting one because it speaks to maybe being stretched thin for infrastructure that has to serve multiple communities, but I don't know how to operationalize this geographically.
This and for what it's worth, Alex, this feels very much like EJ 101. Like this is like one of the foundational stories of EJ. Whenever there's regional infrastructure, it always ends up in our backyard. So I'm assuming that that's what. But I like you. I'm not sure how we capture that, but I think that's what's driving this. I think.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And to me, I think that we try to capture that with everything that we have, but you know, I'm going to flag it. I want us to try to think about it, and we'll get back to you on it. Zoning practices. We're still wondering what this means, but we do have zoned land use in our data set. So I'm going to leave it for that, like that.
Alex, a quick question about this. I know that there were multiple categories where we said that we were addressing it's being captured in the industrial land category, for example. And I remember when we first started talking about this, God, last year, the year before, who even remembers, but I remember we were talking about some like a unique challenge the state of New York has, in that at least when we had this predecessor body to this, the Just Transition Environmental Justice Working Group, whatever that was. I remember at the time we talked, the Department of State was there, and we were shocked to find out that there wasn't a central database that the state of New York runs and monitors and keeps up to date of all the industrial zoned land in the state of New York, in part because zoning is a local, municipal, town, village government thing. And for some weird reason, the state just never tracked that. Can anyone from the state, do we know now that we actually, will the state of New York have access to, or will it be compiling a database where folks can see where all the industrial zone land in the state of New York is? Bueller.
I think we'll have to look into that. I mean, at least as far as NYSERDA is concerned, I'm not sure about, that data being available, but we could take it back and explore that, Eddie.
I think just a follow-up question, Eddie, would it be to understand where all of the industrial land is industrial zoned land is across the state, so that we can incorporate that as an indicator into the DAC criteria, or is it sort of what am I trying to ask?
I think
I guess
that's,
another layer of that is the policies that are local policies that the state doesn't have jurisdiction on how those zoning decisions are made or changed or zoned.
well, it would be lovely if we could go to the state of New York and overturn lousy local zoning decisions. Although I don't have confidence that we get a better outcome. But that's not what I was. Look, I think for us, the heart of so many EJ problems locally is driven, defined, re-emphasized by local zoning practices. It's just straight up, right? If in terms of like the most polluting infrastructure, you can only build that in manufacturing zone land, right? You can't build that in a residential community, commercial, et cetera. So, but the problem has been because so many, municipalities and counties and, I mean, ask any EJ person on this panel and they will tell you that it's the wrong side of the tracks is the industrial area. That's where our neighborhoods are most environmentally impacted, and that's where our people live and work, right? So, but again, there was no, and it's weird because the Department of State has some of this data, right? Like they operate the brownfields opportunity area. Brownfields are all, mostly in manufacturing zone land. So there's some beginnings of this data, but what I recall, and I think Chris, it's I don't know if we even have anybody from the Department of State on this call or in this space, but it's Department of State that's the likeliest agency that would be able to track and keep be able to compile all this stuff. But yeah, because there's no statewide office of land use, it's you're going to have to, the state of New York is going to have to find a way to compile all this information, which I believe you guys haven't done yet. So, this is like a big indicator. Like if we're not able to really identify where in the state land is industrially zoned, we're going to miss a lot of DACs.
But we do.
Okay.
And we have that in there. And so what I want to do is look into the exact data and how we're getting it, because we did get data. And so we do have zoning data for industrial manufacturing and mining land use already in the draft criteria. So what I'm wondering is like,
well, hold on, but Alex, you mean it's a criteria that we recommended, but the data, like you're saying that when you guys were doing some of the background work, there is a data set that the state of New York operates that maintains all of the industrial zone land in the state?
I don't remember how we got it, but I know that we have it and it is in the DAC criteria and part of our definition right now.
Yeah, no, I think it's exactly right. Like we need to have it in our criteria. I just want to make sure the state of New York can produce what we're
well, somehow we got it, and I'm trying to remember back because this was like 2 years ago how we developed it. What I'm wondering is then how it's gonna get updated and stuff. So I'm just gonna put it in red. I'm gonna look into it so that we can kind of figure out what exactly the data we have comes from, because we do have it in, and if I remember correctly, it's actually pretty good. So I want to figure out whether it's updatable, and how often is it updatable.
Gotcha. Thank you.
If I could chime in, I think that's kind of why I was asking my question, Eddie, about like industrial zoned land versus zoning policies or practices, because I was wondering if that's what this comment was getting at, because we have some data set for industrial land already included in the criteria, and we should get more information about what exactly that data set is. But my question was just, what are they trying to get at if we already are including industrial land? Is it something to do with policies or practice? And we've made, to your point, Eddie, we have limited ability to influence that on a municipal level.
Exactly. No, listen, I who knows, right? This goes back to I forget who mentioned this earlier in the call, but sometimes it's really hard unless you're reading the actual written recommendation by the person. It's unclear exactly what they mean. I will tell you that zoning policies and practices have been like the bane of EJ existence going back 40 years. So it's now whether whether the person that submitted this was basically saying, look, the way zoning happens is problematic. I believe that's actually absolutely true, but that's not something we can fix here. What we can fix, which is the whole point of the Climate Justice Work Group and the DACs, is sending the money to remediate or to mitigate or to adapt or whatever. So that's what I think. That's the only thing we can do, right? We're not going to be able to, through this process, this working group, we're not going to be able to change, overhaul how the state handles local zoning matters. But what it can do is make sure the money, it's to make sure that we have it actually collected adequately for the entire state, so that we know that we're not missing DAC. So I agree. I'm sure that there's zoning problems that all kinds of folks could raise, but I don't think there's anything we can do about it in this body.
That's pretty much my interpretation of the comment when it was zoning practices, was looking at the actual practices, but saying that basically that we couldn't do anything about that. So here's what we do have and what we can do, which is that we do have the industrial, manufacturing, and mining land zones in there. So it's as good as we can get. Okay, we've got housing quality and safety. This one was really hard to operationalize. And we have certain elements in here that I think it overlaps, not just with income. We have age of the home, and we also have manufactured homes. We have renter occupied homes. And I think that that's what we're trying to get at with the housing quality and safety. So to me, this is something we already have, but wanted to check. Okay, we have got people under age 18. We actually have the opposite. We have aged, people over age 65. We don't have children in our criteria. We did consider them, but then decided not to. So I wanted to check in with you guys and see whether we should reconsider it. The reason why we felt like we didn't need it was because we had other things like low birth weight, premature deaths, and we have single family homes as well. Access to potable water. This one we want to flag for further review. We have other water quality indicators, but this one seemed different to us and something that was interesting in the, particularly in certain, not in New York, but other areas where this has been a real big issue. So we wanted to look into it.
How do we, like, you're gonna look into it, we're gonna talk about it. This is definitely an issue in the rural part of the state for homes that do not have municipal infrastructure, but also have issues with well water. So I guess, are you wondering how you're gonna analyze that?
Yeah, we're wondering that too. So when we go into the quote unquote look into it, we start asking the state agencies what data they might have to cover this. Then we start looking at census data and try to operationalize it in various ways. And what we'll do then is come back to you and be like, okay, here's what we found. Here's the information. Does this actually get us what we want to try to measure with access to potable water? And then we download data if we can and do it that way. Right now, we're just trying to take these 40 and collapse them down to kind of a realistic number of, say, 5 to 10 that we're going to look into.
Thanks, Alex.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to flag this one. Illegal dumping. We felt like this was a really interesting one, but also something that we weren't going to be able to find data on consistently across the state. And we also felt like we have some peripheral data that could help inform this. We have, truck traffic, we have zoning, we have a lot of things, but I wanted to see what you all thought. This one's a tricky one. Okay, I'm going to say no to that one.
Quick question.
Yeah.
But we're doing the lead, and is it the lead one that we're doing, or illegal dumping?
Illegal dumping. I was about to move on, but we can chat.
Okay, yeah. Doesn't, like, the AG's office or, like, DEC track this? specifically, I feel like there might be data available that is outside of the truck traffic and industrial land. I think illegal dumping happens from so many different industries and in places that might not be near industrial wasteland, and oftentimes, and could potentially, I don't have the information, so I'm not going to, speak to where they're dumping it, but I imagine it's in communities where there not a lot of access to good resources to do something about it.
Yeah, I live in one of those, and cars are dumped all sorts of, and it's a big thing. Okay, well, if there is indication that this is actually tracked, which is great to know, that would be good. I see a hand in the New York City office.
Yes, just to respond to Raula's question about DEC data, we can check with our Division of Materials Management. We do enforcement actions of illegal dumping across the state, and so we can see if we have statewide data on that. I think one, I guess, potential flag I would have about that is how, if that data is inclusive of municipal data as well, because there's also at the municipal level, the sanitation departments that obviously do their own enforcement and tracking of illegal dumping, but that's a good flag and something that we can look into. Thank you.
Yeah, that's good to know. I thought it was all municipal and was going to be too hard to bring through. So good to know. Let's look into it. Okay, I'm going to talk about lead and water in schools, and then lead water service in service lines. Both of these are something we peripherally get, and this is very peripheral, so I'll just admit that. We have homes built before 1960, which is trying to get at lead in homes. We have nothing in schools, no information about schools, nor service lines. The school lead water issue is not one that I know is tracked consistently. And so this is one of those where we are wondering what we can do for this or not. Same for the service lines.
I feel like the lead in water, there is some entity that's been working on this, and I can't remember who anymore. I don't know if Sonal, you would have that information, but I feel like there's some really good GIS mapping around. You can look up different schools in New York State to see if that school has lead in the water or not, lead pipes or not.
So I was aware that there was some tracking, but I was not aware that it was statewide.
Yeah,
or
it's statewide for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I think though the element is, if I'm remembering the situation correctly, is that it's not really tracked in New York City yet. So I think there is a pretty major data gap, which is part of what we've been trying to figure out how to fill. But it might, it might have information in some parts of the state and not fully in other parts of the state. And in terms of the service lines, there might be information about parts of the service line, but not all of the service lines. And some of it is in, the homeowner's jurisdiction, and some of it is the municipality's jurisdiction. So it's kind of a little funky.
Guys, this is Neil from DOH. I could check too. I know DOH had some programs available for replacing lead service lines, and we're collecting some data about lead in water in schools. I'm not sure if it can be operationalized to the census tract level statewide, but I can look into it from our end too.
Thanks, Neil. Yeah, so let's look into these.
Question. Sorry, I had a quick question. So the lead water service lines, just kind of to respond to Sonal's question, is my understanding of how lead work generally is if there's, whether it's the municipal part owned or the homeowners, once you disturb that lead, it's going to get into the home. So do we look into this information knowing that either way, whether, and the likelihood of the water service line, if the municipality owning it and the homeowner also having it, is pretty high, is I don't know, I just feel like it should be included, just, that's all I got to say.
Yeah, to your point, Rala, it could totally be sufficient. I think the problem is I don't know if that information is available enough for the city. That's more of the main issue than the actual homes piece.
Well, let's look into it and see what we have. I mean, I think that the science behind lead exposure is very clear. This is a very important one if we can get it. From what we knew of last time, this wasn't being tracked. It's good that this now is starting to be tracked. So I'm going to flag it. We'll look into it, see what we can do. I'm going to go through a couple. We only have 10 minutes left. Lana, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to go through a couple of these quickly to just go through this and then talk next steps. Let's see here. Competitive power ventures fracking, we wanted to flag that to look into. By the way, I will send this whole rubric out with our notes and our flags so you can review any of the ones that we're running out of time on. Let's see here. For drinking water, again, I think that kind of goes into others and potable water, so we're going to look into that. Percentage debt service, that's just income, and we're going to not try to go into this minor subdivision kind of thing. Let's see here. Population density is used as a benchmark and not often. We have other things that I think we're better at using here. Let's see here. Abandoned buildings, another one for us to look into. We're curious about this and zoning and everything else because this, I think, could be interesting and helpful for DAX. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that. Abandoned buildings. Okay, prevalence of illegal truck parking. I think we're better off if we have dump site information. We're going to do that. Sometimes they go hand in hand. Okay, and then low life expectancy. We already have premature deaths and low birth weight, but life expectancy in the United States has decreased for a while now, and I think it's worthwhile actually looking at this. If there is a metric out there that could be geographically contained, it could be an interesting thing for us to include. Now, I do think that we have lots of indicators that point to a certain way, but this concept is something that, shockingly, something we need to consider. Okay, any other questions or thoughts here? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing so I can look at you all and go through next steps. I wanted to have, like, each of these meetings, I'd like to have a quote unquote tough conversation. And these are the ones of like, we got to talk about the inclusion of race as a comment. There were a lot of comments saying, thank you for including race, it's really important. There were comments saying it should be excluded. We need to discuss that. We need to discuss for the individual criteria, the use of state median income versus area median income. We got several comments to that. So we have a couple, quote unquote, what I'm calling like tough, more conceptual conversations. We had these before, but we need to have them again and make a vote on them. We don't have quorum this time, so I want us to do that next time. I will send this list to you with rubric scoring so you all can have that. Please review it before next time. And for those that we've flagged for review or next steps for us, what we're going to do is take the next step, try to operationalize that indicator. Where we can, we'll go back to the original comment and try to glean any other information if it's a tough one to get at. We'll also work with state agencies to get at all of those different metrics that we could have. Quick update on diabetes, we're going to work on that one. And the data are going to have to be kind of geocoded and gathered, but we have, I think, a good path toward getting those data to include into the criteria. So next steps immediate for us is to take what we discussed today and follow through on all of those that we've flagged, and then get back to you. We will also send out that Excel sheet.
Yeah. Hey, Alex.
Mhm.
A good question. Not that, a lot of us, we live for the tough conversations, right? But I don't need to have any more tough conversations than I have to. The reason I'm asking this is that for some of these tough conversations, I get why, I think I get why some people would have issues with race. Our brothers and sisters in Long Island notwithstanding, but out of curiosity, like, some of these are tough, but too bad, right? Like, doesn't the law say that we're supposed to include race? Like, in other words, what I'm saying is that to the degree that you guys have identified tough questions, it might be helpful for someone just to compare some of those complaints or observations with what the law actually says that we have to do, because there's no conversation to have over race, I think, because I thought it was actually in the law. But I'd be interested in hearing some of our state colleagues if that's accurate. But and the other thing is, when is the next meeting? Because I want to make sure that I got to have my rubric rating list. So, like, when is this next meeting?
It's December 7th.
December 7th is what you said?
Yeah, December 7th, and then after that, the meeting following that, the last meeting for 2022 will be December 14th.
And just to follow up on the race one, it's not necessarily that it's a yes or no, it's also how we operationalized it. We pulled out and weighted certain races over and above others, and that didn't go well for some people. For us, clearly I'm biased on this, within an EJ kind of perspective, there are some racial groups that are much more impacted than others. And so this is what we were trying to do. But I just want to bring that up and also have like an eyes open. We're still, even with the comments, that this is gonna be the way that we want to do it.
There's nothing else you can do if you're talking about equity, right? So if we're talking about equity, you have to take measures that level the playing field so that you can treat everyone equal. And that's just real clear. I did want to thank you for including diabetes or agreeing to look at it deeper. It's really important to me and the people in our community. You know, that was a big issue that I raised. So I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Yeah, of course, it's a big one and important. So, these tough conversations may not be tough for us, but I think having them in an open forum and discussing them is all I'm getting at. And that's part of the reason why I've been so kind of like, here's all the comments, and trying to be as transparent about it as possible, to give everyone a voice. But all that being said, I think we have a clear direction with some of these. And we might be able to cover 2 quote unquote hard conversations pretty quickly. The individual criteria is going to be one of those as well. We've talked about these a lot last time, but we still need to talk about them again for the final vote. So I just want to have like one conversation sometime to be like, yeah, we all agree. Let's move on, or not.
Can I add one more thing? It was on the Excel spreadsheet, Alex, that you went over, and we didn't talk about it in depth, but I would be remiss if I did not opine that proximity to airports is something that DEC in particular has received some incoming on. And, I'm not an climate justice working member, so it's not my decision to make, but I did want to raise that it was flagged that for some concerns, particularly in New York City, that proximity to airport, even if they are zoned industrial immediately surrounding the airport, that the environmental impact does extend immediately to residential communities that tend to be low income around those areas. And so I think there was a recommendation for us to just see if that is already covered. Maybe it's covered under air quality elsewhere. Maybe it is covered under industrial land, as you put in the Excel spreadsheet, Alex. So maybe we are covered, but I just wanted to flag it before we ended today that proximity to airport is something that we have heard from DEC. That's something we should bring before the working group.
Okay. And that was also in the comments. We can take a look at it, and we can do it basically by looking at the corollaries, right? So to run a lot of correlations with what we have now versus the data we have already for proximity to airports, because I think we have it. I'll double check. Either way, it's something we can look into. Any other final thoughts?
I was just thinking, Alex, that it's good that you're going to look into it, that people move next to the airports and then want to move the airport. And so I just, I don't always know whether these are EJ issues or just people who are just not happy that they moved next to an airport. So it would be great if you could just provide us with that information.
Yeah, we could totally do that. Okay. I appreciate your time, and I also appreciate everyone who is moving. I know that this is harder for us to have like these conversations. I can't see all of you all the time with everyone, so I appreciate everyone's active kind of participation today. Okay, until next week, we'll send you the Excel sheet.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you all. Good afternoon.